All right, welcome back, everybody. You know, it's late in the day and we've made it here, and everybody still looks so refreshed and energized, and I love that. So let's keep it going with our final session of the day. It is called From Dairy to Data, Investing in Wisconsin. And I don't know about you guys, but I think only here in Wisconsin could those two things go together in the same sentence and really make total sense. Well, this session takes us beyond the cows and into the code, looking at what the numbers are telling us about our economy, from recent public and private investments to demographic shifts, workforce trends, and where the next big opportunities might be. Leading us through the data-driven journey is someone who truly understands how numbers tell a story. David Casey, Secretary of the Wisconsin Department of Revenue, was appointed by Governor Evers in 2024. After previously serving as Deputy Secretary from 2019 to 2022. He brings nearly 30 years of experience helping state tax agencies modernize, improve service, and find smarter, more efficient ways to serve the public. He's worked across the country from Vancouver to Chicago to North Carolina, but we are lucky he's bringing that expertise right home here to Wisconsin. A graduate of Grinnell College and Carnegie Mellon University, Secretary Casey is passionate about using data to help government and communities work better together. And when he's not unlocking insights from spreadsheets, you'll find him unlocking Wisconsin's great outdoors, exploring lakes and parks with his husband, Kevin. So please join me in welcoming a man who proves that behind every great investment story, there's an even better spreadsheet. Please welcome Secretary David Casey.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. Beautiful day out there today. I am passionate about data, and I'll just share with you a quote I often say in my office, and that is, if we have data, let's use data. If all we have are opinions, I think we'll go with mind. Point of that is we look at data for everything we do at the agency and how we process taxes, but also the economy. Our revenue forecasters are the ones that set the budget for the state of Wisconsin, or the revenue side of the budget for the state of Wisconsin. And I will tell you, for the last 50 years, we've held the #1 position for accuracy in the nation. So, a great agency. I'm going to start just to tell you a little bit about the agency, because I like talking about the numbers. I'll give you a perspective of who we are at the Department of Revenue. Last year, we processed over $22 billion in tax revenue. We also processed over 7 million tax returns, 3.1 from individuals and about 3.9 from businesses. We collected $362 million in delinquent debt, and we also collected over $77 million for local governments, over 600 local governments and state agencies throughout the state. So we are really a revenue generator for the state of Wisconsin. In doing that, we answered over 700,000 phone calls, and we saw over 32,000 people come through our doors with questions. We served 1,922 communities. We have our state and local finance group that distributed over $3.2 billion in shared revenue and property tax credits. And we did this with about 1,100 employees in 10 different offices. My favorite numbers here are, last year we collected $864 million in lottery sales. And can you believe we sold 163 million lottery tickets last year? So we are busy, we are about the numbers. And so today what I'm going to do is take you through some of the numbers that are important to you as entrepreneurs and businesses and economic development leaders in the state. I'm going to talk a little bit about public and private investments that we've had, look at the economic trends, and then discuss some things that we can do to move forward as a state. First of all, the last tax cut and all of the tax cuts that were signed by Governor Evers in the last 5 years, over 86% of Wisconsinites are paying 15% lower taxes. We have the lowest combined state and local tax burden in over 50 years. The state of Wisconsin. We are the 39th state, 39th lowest tax burden of all of the states. So when we talk about how do we attract people to Wisconsin, we need to be saying we are the 39th lowest tax burden in the country for state and local taxes. We've had WEDC investments. Last year, $91 million alone. This is through some of the programs you see up there, but the business community grants, the global industry partnerships, the Wisconsin Investment Fund, the Main Street program. We have been investing in our communities throughout the state. Private investments, what you see up here does not include a large one from Microsoft, but we've had $5.5 billion in investments in the last 4 years. Those investments have been everywhere from, let's see, it was Sartori Cheese in Antigo and Plymouth to the Cookie Mon plant in Jefferson. So we have some major investments that have been occurring in the state of Wisconsin. Those private investments, our public investments, are making Wisconsin an attractive place to invest. And we need to continue moving in that direction. Now, I'm going to get into what I call the roller coaster story of our current economic situation and the economic trends. I'm going to look at a few things. Our employment, look at our, everything from our employment all the way through our trade situation. Let's see. There we go. First of all, employment. Our employment has been sitting at about 3.1% for the last several years. You see the little spike we had during the pandemic. Before that, we were at around 3.1%. We have a really good unemployment figure. We are traditionally a state that is a large employment state. We have about a very full employment. We like to work. And right now, we have a really low unemployment level. We are 8th lowest unemployment rate in the country. Now, here's where you go on the roller coaster. It's great. We have low unemployment, but we can't find people to do the work. We have a labor shortage. If you took every single unemployed person in the state of Wisconsin and matched them to the available jobs that we have, we still wouldn't fill all of the available jobs. There's a major skill gap, opportunity gap, and a labor gap that we have there that we need to continually be looking at. How can we improve that? But right now, our great unemployment figure sounds great until you're trying to hire people and you can't find anybody to hire. We look at inflation. We were sitting at the 2-3% inflation coming into the pandemic. We spiked up with the national inflation level up to the 8.5%, close to 9%. We're back down around 3.1% now. That is starting to kind of level off, but we did see this summer a little uptick in inflation. I think if you're paying attention to the financial news these days, you're hearing the same thing. Just a little bit of worry about inflation. But I will tell you what we're seeing from our economic reports. We use Standard & Poor's and Moody to inform us. They're still looking at, about a 30% downside and a 30% upside, which I kind of joke that comes from my economists. It's such an economist answer. Could go up, it could go down. We don't know. But it's nice that we're at least seeing a kind of level at this point. So inflation is not driving us towards a recession at this point. Now, the roller coaster here was inflation actually knocked out our wage growth over the last several years. So our wage growth in 2024, we jumped up, but inflation was so high before that we're now just getting back to about even with a wage-adjusted personal income. So what we thought was going to be great with wage growth is now plateaued, and we're about even where we were before. One number I like to share with folks is this one. The top 10% earners in the country, that's anybody, any household making over $175,000 a year is driving nearly 50% of the consumption in the U.S. economy right now. That is putting a pretty big risk on our economy, that 10% of our earners are driving 50% of our economic activity from a consumption standpoint. And actually, the bottom 30% are only driving about 15% of our economy. What's been happening is that our inflation picture looks good. We're actually 31st in the state from an inflation standpoint. It looks really good, but the inequities are there. The larger incomes are driving our economy. That puts us at risk. If the stock market crashes, those are our high earners. Our economy drops. If we have trade wars that impact high income jobs, then the economy will suffer from that. So we're a little bit higher risk. Then we move to housing. And affordability is good, but our housing is a little scary. And I'm going to take some time to dive into this one. The way that we measure affordability on housing is if you spend 30% or less of your median household income. Prior to 2009 and the housing crisis and the last recession, we were up in that, this is the Milwaukee area, we were up in that 35 to 40% range. So we were not affordable. Housing market peaked, prices dropped, mortgage rates dropped down to historic lows. And we spent a decade or so at affordable housing. Then the pandemic hit, mortgage rates went up, and as of February 2025, the Milwaukee, Waukesha area was sitting at upwards of top 30s into about 38%, I believe. Picture looks worse for the Madison area. Actually, Madison was a little bit more affordable prior to the housing crisis. Then this nice steady line of affordability, and then the pandemic hit, mortgage rates went up with inflation, and in February, the median, 48% of the median household income was for, median household income was for housing alone. I want to point this out because I also heard today in some of the sessions, childcare is expensive. Childcare in some areas amount to 30 to 40% of your cost of living. Add that to nearly 50%, you don't have any money left over for food, clothing. I mean, those things are getting really, really expensive for us. This map shows you all of Wisconsin. We are still less expensive than the U.S. average, but if you look, if you can see closely enough in that, Madison's above 52%. All of the green areas are in that 30 to 40%, and the Milwaukee area is above 40%. Our housing is becoming very, very expensive. Probably nothing I hadn't heard already today, but quantifying that and noting that's 40 to 50% of a median household income is going to their housing. Let's turn a little bit to manufacturing. Industrial manufacturing was up a tenth of a percent in August, but it declined 0.4% in July. What we're seeing is that over the last 12 months, manufacturing is up about 0.9%. Doesn't sound like much, sounds like pretty even. That's what's happened over the last decade. Manufacturing is just a series of little minor ups and downs, up and downs. Nothing really major in any one direction. But in Wisconsin, we've been investing in manufacturing, $2.4 billion in real property investments. So while the U.S. manufacturing is relatively flat, we are an attractive place to invest. Thank you. We are very much an attractive place to invest. So we've seen $2.4 billion in real property investment in the last few years. The trade deficit is actually worsening. Beginning of this year, it it got pretty bad. It's kind of leveled off a little bit back up to where we've seen over the last decade. But I hate to get into it on the discussion on trade, but tariffs are driving this up and down month by month, or as we saw just last week, even day by day. What I want to point out here is that, and I'm going to get into some detail on this, but exports of goods from Wisconsin fell 2.9% in the first 7 months of this year. Our major trading partners are Canada and Mexico. Canada, our number one trading partner, our exports have fallen 10.5%. Mexico's are down 5.1%. Interestingly, exports of machinery from Wisconsin are down 13.1%. Most of that is Canadian. That amounts to $458 million down from what we did the previous year. More than half of that decline, so $233 million, is exports of machinery to Canada alone. So we're starting to see the impacts this year of the trade war hitting our manufacturing and machinery industries, and hitting our two favored traders, Canada and Mexico. I don't have the numbers up here for you to see, but the other is our relationship with China. About 30% of our soybean market is China, and that's completely cut off right now. So 30% of our soybeans are going to go to grain elevators. They're not leaving the state of Wisconsin because we do not have a Chinese trading partner at this time. Now, when we look at tariffs, I'm going to dive a little bit into this a little bit more, but when we look at tariffs, it's got in some cases, a good impact, in other cases, a bad impact. The soybean, that's a bad impact. Our niche agriculture area is doing well. Ginseng, cranberries, they tend to do well because in that market, there's nobody else to turn to. And so we are an attractive place. Soybeans, corn, that they can turn to other places. So we're still looking to see how that's going to impact our state economic condition and state revenues. But kind of as you see, it changes on a regular basis. Moving forward, what can we do? We have this dynamic situation, a little uncertainty with our trade, but we need to do a couple of things. First of all, we need to build Wisconsin's labor supply, and then secondly, we need to expand Wisconsin's diverse economy. There's a few ways that we do that. So with the labor supply, the first thing is invest in education. We have 13 universities, 16 tech colleges across 48 campuses in the state. Our universities, our tech colleges are economic engines in the communities that they're in, and they are also building our labor supply. We need to make sure our universities are affordable and that they're targeted to provide us the growth and the jobs that we need to build our labor supply. We're doing some of that. You can see the co-innovation program with Microsoft AI, University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. All right, investing in technology and teaming with a university. We can do that throughout the state and continue to build upon our educational heritage and expand and build upon education in the state. Second is making housing affordable. I hit on the affordability. There's a few ways to make it. I'm not going to tackle this problem up here in a couple of minutes, but there are a few ways to make housing affordable. Most of that is local through zoning, but at the state level, it's investments. It's making sure that we're investing in affordable housing. I heard earlier this afternoon a gentleman talking about his company investing in housing for their employees. So if we can do that, that's another way. The other aspect of housing I heard it a little bit today, but transportation. So housing is expensive when it's close to the jobs. It's less expensive when it's further away, but transportation is more expensive. So building the transportation and making transportation affordable ultimately makes housing affordable as well. The third area is to make Wisconsin an attractive place for people to move. We need to be attracting the 25 to 40-year-old demographic, the earners that are bringing families and building a community here. Talked about it a little bit, but childcare is essential to that, making sure that childcare is affordable. So if we have housing affordable and childcare affordable, we bring families and we develop and build our communities through basically making it an attractive place for us, for people to move. Then when we look at expanding our Wisconsin's diverse economy, there's a couple areas to do that. Manufacturing, we had the $2.4 billion of growth. That's important. Keep doing that. Keep building. As we start to build in particular areas, leverage that and build out from that. So I know we've got quite a bit of investment in Southeast Wisconsin. We've got quite a bit of investment in Green Bay and the Fox Valley. We also have investment in the Eau Claire area. So how do we take that and then build upon that? So continue to invest in manufacturing. Look at agriculture. I talked a little bit about this, but expanding to some diversity in agriculture, starting to look at some of the specialization. I mentioned ginseng, cranberries, hemp. We are a great hemp state. So starting to build and expand some of the more niche areas and less dependency on some of the larger crops. I want to address a couple. One, I look up here, we've got agriculture and we have healthcare. Healthcare, for the first time ever in history, healthcare and actually a little bit of education, employment surpassed manufacturing for the state of Wisconsin just about 9 months ago. So when we used to be number one manufacturing employment state. Now we are number one health and education employment state. So building upon our health and our education footprint that we've got and expanding that. Some of that is in the biotech industry and expanding biotech. We've got our biotech hubs throughout the state of Wisconsin. But then to the last area is just investing in technology. I brought up the Microsoft AI collaboration with the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. Using that, if we're going to be bringing more technology into the state of Wisconsin, leveraging our data center investments and bringing in AI with those, building upon the knowledge base that we have in Wisconsin to build up our technology industry as well. If we look at these areas, manufacturing, agriculture, technology, and health, and continue to invest as we have over the last several years, we can keep Wisconsin moving forward. So with that, I'm going to leave it here. I've got about 5 minutes or so. If anybody has any questions specifically, kind of hit at a high level, but if you want me to dive into a particular area, I can probably do that, or at least try to. Oh, there's a microphone coming to you.
So what does your data say about productivity improvements to improve the gap in the labor market?
I haven't looked specifically at productivity improvements with the labor market. I don't really have an answer for that one because we don't look at productivity. What we look at are, and I will say that's a caveat on the numbers that we look at the economic indicators that are driving our tax and revenue figures. So is productivity out there? Yes, I've been in actually I was on a call today with a number of technology leaders talking about artificial intelligence and productivity improvements. This was an international group. What I heard the standard is that for about 80% of your employees, AI will improve their productivity about 20%. And for 20% of your employees, it'll improve it about 80%. And that's the 80-20 rule for artificial intelligence right now. So not an exact answer to your question, but we will be seeing more productivity improvements. Question right up here.
So, as far as youth unemployment and unemployment within college graduates, do you have data on that? Is that something you look at?
So if the unemployment for recent college graduates. So I had it about 3 weeks ago. I was presented this information by my economist. The recent college graduates were running at around 8.5 to 9% unemployment. It's hitting that generation particularly hard. So we look at students coming out of college, they're at that 8.5, 9% unemployment rate right now. Did I answer that question? I don't know. I'm not sure how to solve that. When we start to looking at the labor shortage and the gap, are we directing our education to the right areas? If we are going to have expanding healthcare and education, are we investing in our tech colleges for healthcare workers? Or are we continuing to invest in some educational? I say this, I went to Grinnell College. I have an economic of history degree, not the most practical, but are we investing in the right places for the job gaps that we have right now? It's a way to think about it.
You mentioned the need to grow talent and talent attraction, retention is part of that. And then you specifically mentioned 25 to 40-year-olds. As somebody who's come to Wisconsin previously, what do you think our pitch is? How do we work with WDC on these talent attraction grants that are going to happen? What are we pitching to people to get them interested in Wisconsin?
One of the pitches is looking at the affordability just generally, because we are a relatively affordable state. So pitching that and making it attractive, but it's this odd balance. You've got to make it attractive from affordable housing, childcare, but we have to have the jobs too. So it's that you get into a little bit of the chicken and the egg situation, but promoting Wisconsin as we have been as a great state to live in with affordable housing, but we need to address it in our metropolitan areas. I think we've been doing well with our investments, whether that's WDC investments or private investments. And quite frankly, our tax incentives such that we've put in place, I mean, it's 15% lower taxes than 5 years ago. We're making ourselves a very attractive place financially, both corporate and individual level, to invest. So I think if we leverage where we are now and build upon that and make the investments in education and continue the industrial and manufacturing investments that we've been doing, we'll be in a good spot.
You had some great data that you shared with us, and I guess as a regional partner who helps local communities, townships, villages, cities, counties, is there an opportunity or a way that we could do a better job partnering with you to actually use real, actual data instead of looking at some of the other data sources that are averages or surveys or census that just don't really reflect the communities?
Yes. And actually, I failed to point out the QR codes. I don't know if anybody looked at one of the QR codes that was up there. We have over 45 data visualizations on our website that provide all of this economic information, all of the data points. And in fact, today we released our annual economic or financial report on all of the local governments in the state of Wisconsin. So the Department of Administration does their state fiscal report, and then we put that into a visualization. So you can go out and see every single community, what revenue they bring it in and what source, whether that's taxes or fees, and then you can look at where they spend it on police and fire, economic development, education. So we have a wealth of data, and we are always looking at ways that we can provide that data to all of the consumers, whether that be governments or businesses. In fact, if you are looking for particular pieces of data, you can ask us and we can try and provide that to you. I will caution, our data sources are a lot of federal data sources. Don't have those right now. So in fact, we were supposed to get some of the labor reports, early labor reports, and didn't get those. So we're looking for alternative sources where we can start to pull in data. But our small research and policy group has all of the census data, economic data, federal, state, local, and we're all just trying to pull it together for you.
So my question for you is back here.
Back there, okay.
So I've been having some internal conversation. Mind you, our municipality is a lot smaller than some of them across the state. How do you think that the push for the job creation in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s has impacted this labor shortage that we're seeing today, which then on the flip side, everybody's been pushing for this housing crisis, that there's a lack of housing. At what point do you think these two things are going to come to a head and they're going to kind of hit that break-even point and level out, where now all of a sudden, instead of black storefronts, we have empty homes sitting? At what point do those numbers flip? And are you taking that into consideration when you're forecasting some of this out? Because at some point we can't grow our population much quicker than we are. So we're going to have to weed out either some of the jobs, and maybe some of that will happen through AI, but how do we flip that?
Well, you're asking me to forecast the economy. Very, very good questions. I'm not sure I would want to flip it where we have excess housing and excess employees. But we need to try to get back to that balance as much as we possibly can. I'm not sure. We're not really I'm not sure how else to answer that. What we're looking at right now from a revenue forecast and growth in the state, actually, we're moving on our GDP for the state's going to be increasing at about 2.5, 2.6% over the next year. It's right where it needs to be. We're right on track. We're doing fairly well. That doesn't answer the micro areas in the economy when you talk about housing and wage, but we are still growing. And I don't think it's a one or the other. I think it's a shifting of those jobs, the availability of the jobs, and also shifting where they are. Our housing crisis is predominantly in Madison and Milwaukee. Our job shortages are primarily in Madison and Milwaukee. We need to spread that out and provide employment opportunities throughout the state where housing is more affordable and transportation exists. In fact, I do a little side thing. At the Department of Revenue, we are hiring most of our new employees in our other offices because we need to be competitive, and we can provide a competitive wage in Eau Claire and Wausau and Appleton and Oshkosh and Green Bay. And so we're seeing, okay, we can hire out there, and we're expanding our offices there and shrinking our Madison office. So I see it as kind of a little microcosm of how the economy can play out in Wisconsin. So, other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, Secretary Casey. It's an interesting thing. We are intentional at WDC for the last 4 years now in hosting this event to try not to host this Economic Development Summit, but to host the Wisconsin Economic Summit. And one of the ways that really helps us do that is when we're able to bring in the lens on our state's economy from someone like Secretary Casey. So it really helps us. Is we've typically done this the previous 3 years. We've done it as a kickoff. And so it's interesting today to do it after this full day of just incredible content, because I think what I've heard in Secretary Casey's comments, I've heard some pieces, some through lines from some of the folks that we've heard today in our conversations. What I think it was Josh from Sturgeon Bay. I certainly know it was Will from the city of Green Bay and Dan from Brookfield, all looking at really different ways to crack the housing nut. Now, they were talking in different of the conversations about different forces that they were facing to get that done. It's not easy, but we certainly have actors in Wisconsin trying to really tackle some of the major challenges facing our economies. We're also seeing from Secretary Casey's remarks some foundation of conversations I'm really excited about for tomorrow. Tomorrow, we'll have an hour really talking about where Wisconsin and Wisconsin business sits on the global stage, how our businesses are navigating tariffs and trade tensions. And we heard a little bit of the data today that lays a foundation for that. So, Secretary Casey, thank you so much for being here.